Just from the scripture's point of view, it says that God sits in the heavens and laughs. After a 1.5-year battle, by the grace of God, 10 city council members voted for us, and we got the facility, and we were so excited. I grew up watching the Rockets play basketball here, and this was more than I ever dreamed.
For decades, Joel Osteen stood at the center of one of the largest religious movements in America. Week after week, tens of thousands gathered inside Lakewood Church, while millions more watched from around the world. His message was simple: hope, positivity, and a belief that better days were always ahead. But one afternoon, that message was tested in a way no one inside that building could have imagined. Because in a moment of chaos, fear replaced faith, and everything changed. On February 11th, 2024, a woman entered Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, armed. According to verified reports from Associated Press and Reuters, she began shooting inside the church, sending panic through the congregation. Worshippers who had come seeking peace suddenly found themselves running for safety. The situation escalated within seconds. Law enforcement officers on site responded quickly and fatally shot the attacker. A child who was with the woman was injured during the incident and hospitalized. Source: AP News, Feb 2024, Reuters coverage. For a church known for its uplifting atmosphere, the shock was unimaginable. This wasn't just a security breach. It was a moment that shattered the sense of safety that had defined Lakewood for years. But to understand why this moment felt so heavy, you have to go back to where it all started. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963, in Houston, Texas. He wasn't always the confident speaker millions recognize today. In fact, he was the opposite, and far more comfortable behind the scenes than in front of a crowd. His father, John Osteen, was everything Joel wasn't: bold, energetic, and deeply passionate when he spoke. Back in 1959, John founded Lakewood Church with just a small group of people gathering in a simple space. According to historical records from Lakewood Church archives, the congregation started with fewer than 100 members. But over time, it grew, slowly, then rapidly. By the late 1970s, thousands were attending regularly, turning Lakewood into one of Houston's most recognized churches. Joel grew up watching that growth, but he never imagined leading it. Instead of stepping into ministry, Joel chose a different direction. He attended Oral Roberts University, focusing on radio and television production. It wasn't about preaching, it was about storytelling. But after just 1 year, he made a decision that would shape his future. He dropped out and returned home, not to preach, but to work behind the camera. For the next 17 years, Joel stayed out of the spotlight. He built Lakewood's television presence from the ground up. According to interviews he later gave, he never wanted to preach. He felt unqualified, even fearful of speaking in front of large crowds. Even when his father encouraged him to try, he refused. He believed he could never match what his father had built. Then came 1999, the year everything changed. John Osteen became seriously ill and couldn't deliver his weekly sermon. For the first time in his life, Joel stepped onto the stage. He later described that moment as overwhelming, but necessary. Just days later, his father passed away unexpectedly, and suddenly, Joel Osteen was in charge. At just 35 years old, he inherited a massive responsibility, and not everyone believed he could handle it. Even Joel himself had doubts. But instead of trying to replace his father, he chose to be different. His style was calm, measured, encouraging. Instead of focusing on fear or judgment, he spoke about hope, growth, and possibility. And something surprising happened. People connected with it. Attendance began to rise, quickly. According to Lakewood Church reports and multiple media sources, weekly attendance grew from around 5,000 to tens of thousands within a few years. Television broadcasts expanded globally. By the mid-2000s, his sermons were reaching audiences in over 100 countries. Then came one of the boldest decisions in the church's history. Lakewood acquired the former home of the Houston Rockets, the Compaq Center. Transforming a sports arena into a church wasn't easy. Reports indicate tens of millions of dollars were spent renovating the space into a massive worship facility. By 2005, the transition was complete. Lakewood had become the largest church in the United States. Everything seemed unstoppable, until the criticism began. Joel's message, centered on positivity and success, started drawing attention. Some praised it, others questioned it. ICX argued that his teachings leaned too heavily into what is often called the prosperity gospel, the idea that faith can lead to financial success. This debate has been widely documented by outlets like the New York Times and Houston Chronicle. Still, his influence continued to grow. His book, Your Best Life Now, became a bestseller, encouraging readers to think positively and expect good things in life. Millions embraced the message, but others remained skeptical. And then came the moment no one expected: the shooting inside Lakewood Church. For a pastor whose entire message was built on peace and encouragement, standing in the aftermath of violence inside his own church was something no sermon could fully prepare him for. The question now wasn't just about faith. It was about resilience. In the hours following the shooting at Lakewood Church, the atmosphere around the building was completely different from what people had known for years. News helicopters circled overhead, and across television screens, one question kept repeating: how could something like this happen inside one of the most well-known churches in America? According to confirmed reports from Associated Press and Reuters, February 2024, the attacker was identified as a woman with a documented history of mental health issues. She entered the church with a rifle and opened fire before being confronted by off-duty law enforcement officers working security. The situation was contained quickly, but not without consequences. A child who was with the attacker was critically injured and rushed to the hospital. Authorities later confirmed the shooter was killed at the scene. For many, the facts were clear, but emotionally, nothing about the situation felt simple, because Lakewood Church had always been seen as a place of safety, a place where families gathered, where people came during their hardest moments looking for hope. Now that sense of security had been shaken. Shortly after the incident, Joel Osteen addressed the public. In his statement, he expressed deep sorrow for everyone affected, especially the injured child and the families involved. He also thanked the law enforcement officers whose rapid response prevented further loss of life. These statements were reported across multiple verified outlets, including BBC News and Reuters. But even as the immediate crisis passed, a deeper challenge began to emerge: the emotional aftermath. For members of the church, returning wasn't easy. Some were afraid, others were shaken, and many were left trying to process how a place associated with peace could become the scene of violence. Security measures were reviewed and strengthened. The conversation around safety in large public gatherings, including churches, became more urgent. This wasn't just a Lakewood issue anymore. It was a national conversation. At the same time, Joel Osteen found himself once again under intense public scrutiny, because this wasn't the first time his leadership had been questioned. Years earlier, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Lakewood Church had received a Paycheck Protection Program (PPP) loan worth approximately $4.4 million, according to records confirmed by the U.S. Small Business Administration and reported by NBC News and Houston Chronicle, 2020-2021. The loan was part of a federal relief program designed to help organizations maintain payroll during the economic shutdown. However, the revelations sparked backlash. Critics questioned why a large and financially successful church would accept government assistance. In response, Representatives for Lakewood Church stated that the loan was used to support staff and operational needs during a period of uncertainty. They also confirmed that the loan was later repaid in full. This repayment was reported by multiple outlets, including Houston Chronicle. Still, the criticism didn't disappear. For some, it reinforced existing concerns about transparency and financial practices. For others, it was a misunderstanding of how large organizations operate during crises. This divide has followed Joel Osteen throughout much of his career. Supporters see him as a source of encouragement, someone who has helped millions find hope during difficult times. Critics argue that his message oversimplifies complex realities, especially when it comes to wealth and success. The debate often centers around what is commonly referred to as the prosperity gospel. This teaching suggests that faith, positive thinking, and obedience can lead not only to spiritual growth, but also to material success. Scholars and religious commentators have widely discussed and debated this idea, with coverage appearing in outlets like the New York Times and Christianity Today. Joel Osteen has addressed these criticisms in interviews, stating that his goal is to inspire people and focus on encouragement rather than condemnation. He has also said that his messages are meant to be accessible, to reach people who might otherwise feel disconnected from traditional religious teachings. But moments like the Lakewood shooting shift the conversation, because in those moments, the focus is no longer on theology. It's on reality. Standing in front of his congregation after the incident, Joel faced a challenge that went beyond words. How do you speak about hope when people are still processing fear? How do you encourage others when the environment itself has changed? And yet that is exactly what he attempted to do. Not by ignoring what happened, but by acknowledging it, while still pointing forward. In the weeks that followed, services continued. People slowly returned, not all at once, but gradually. For some, attending again was an act of faith. For others, it was a step toward healing. What remained unchanged was the scale of Lakewood's influence. Despite controversy, despite criticism, and despite crisis, the church continues to reach millions through television and online platforms. That reach has been consistently documented by media outlets and the church's own published data. But influence comes with pressure. And for Joel Osteen, that pressure has only grown over time. Because every message he delivers now carries more weight, not just as a pastor, but as a public figure whose words are heard around the world. The shooting at Lakewood Church was not just a tragic event. It was a turning point, a moment that forced difficult questions about safety, leadership, faith, and resilience. And while the headlines eventually faded, the impact did not. For Joel Osteen, this chapter is still part of a larger story, one that includes success, criticism, growth, and moments of crisis that no one could predict. What defines that story moving forward isn't just what happened, it's how those moments are faced. Because in the end, the real test isn't what someone builds during the good times, it's how they respond when everything is shaken.